Okay, Vice Chair Schneider, we are now live. If you'd like to proceed. And Vice Chair, you're muted.
Yeah, we're on. All right, I see that there's no land acknowledgement on the agenda. Was that do I do that or?
Apologies, was just a miss on our end. I can read it if you'd like.
Sure, because I can have it in front of me.
Okay. Everyone just bear with me for 1 minute. Okay. We acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the Three Fires, known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation, who have inhabited this land from time immemorial, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all of its diverse peoples.
Thank you. All right, so approval of the agenda, and are there any additions to the agenda? So could I see, I think we need a motion to approve it. Bob, Luke, thank you, everybody. Thank you. And are there any additions to the agenda?
Vice Chair Schneider, I have a brief update on the data from our consultants that I'd like to give to the committee.
All right, and then where should that go, Brittany, in terms of the agenda? Where does that fit in?
I would suggest under new business.
Okay, thank you. There were also a couple of emails that were circulating, and I don't know whether they should be referenced in the agenda. One was from member Danuta about the Suzuki grant opportunity for, I think it was like a mini forest or something, I can't remember exactly. And there was also one about funding available through FCM around planning around your natural assets. Municipal planning around natural-based assets. And I think it wouldn't hurt to have both of those referenced in the minutes. I don't know, did everyone receive the FCM email?
No.
No? Okay, I got it just the other day, so I'm sorry I didn't get it on to Brittany. Should I just email it to Brittany and then it can be included?
Sure.
Okay, all right, thank you. And are there any other additions then to the agenda? I see Brittany's hand up.
Thank you. I just have a couple brief verbal updates regarding our green cones and our GB Goes Green initiative.
And that will also go on new business or? Sure. Okay, all right, thank you. So can we, I think here we're supposed to actually approve the agenda. I think we've actually done that. So the minutes of the previous meeting, a motion for approval of the minutes. Danuta, thank you. And are there any errors or omissions to the minutes that need to be noted? None? So motion to approve the minutes then, everyone approve it? Any declarations of pecuniary interests? No, no delegations, no correspondence, staff reports, no. Public question period, there are no questions. Brittany? No, okay. So the next item on the agenda then is the revised climate action committee work plan, and Danuta, Luke, and I spent some time on that, and it's attached to the minutes, and Luke was going to speak a little bit to what the committee did with that. You're on.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, it's just mute button. Yeah, good morning, everyone. So what we did is just as agreed in the last meeting is to kind of trying to make an effort to consolidate the different work plans. So what you see in the prep pack is actually pretty straightforward. It is an effort to combine the work plan from Woods with regards to the corporate work plan. It is you see the original plan that we developed as the working group and discussed last year over the summer. And then it is also an effort to integrate the milestones and the kind of key objectives of the plan that the CEO and Brittany have been working on. And it's basically trying to, and then fourth objective is to also create a bit of an historical narrative. So what we said last year is that will actually be quite useful for other municipalities to say, how long does it actually take to do this stuff? What's your timelines? What are the steps? So this is also what we agreed last year, is that hopefully over time, this becomes a bit of a documentation of our milestone dates. And yeah, for whoever finds that useful to have a bit of a narrative. It's often very difficult afterwards to piece it together and to go through tedious efforts to go through minutes and dates and emails. So it's those four. The idea really is to actually go back to what we asked last year, is to actually take a hard look at the schedule and say, does it actually make sense? This is not written in stone. It's really meant to be helpful, not an obstacle. So that's basically on the agenda. As you recall, we have discussed it quite a few times last year in terms of what it should look like. And basically, it's an updated version that talks about still a distinction between corporate and community. So that's the core. So there's basically three buckets. One is the green, is really about preparation and resources. Then there is a blue, that's the corporate plan, and then there is towards the end, the orange-red is about the community plan, and then it is divided between mitigation and adaptation. And John made the observation suggestion last year to also say, can we actually start indicating if this is a low, medium, or high level effort? Is it kind of low-hanging fruit? Is it something that we actually can do, or does it require significant effort because it needs a policy decision and therefore it needs some more work? What else to say about it? Yeah, that's basically the nuts and bolts of it. What we did with the community plan, the framework that you provided last time, is we said, okay, or at least what we understood it to be is we have some objectives and we have some time frames, and the objectives are not in this plan because what the framework that we have for the community side is is more like a strategy, in fact, and to say, well, these are some of our objectives and time frames. But then the question, of course, is how do you actually get to those? And that needs to be fleshed out probably in a different document. So this is meant to be kind of a guidance that we can regularly consult and say, are we on track? And again, is meant to be a tool. So next step probably would be to discuss this, maybe not now, but maybe as homework, and to say, well, does it make sense? The Woods Gantt chart is literally, I wouldn't say, it's literally copy and pasted in. So that should be very, very much, that's the one that they presented when they spoke to this committee. The rest is basically up for discussion. That's it there.
Comments, questions? Cynthia, you're still on mute.
Thank you very much. I was just seeing if you could find my hand. I really appreciate the work that the group has done. I think you've pulled together some great information. And Luc, I'm intrigued with the approach. And as you were explaining it, I'm following along and nodding quite a bit. What I wonder if the end goal is to have sort of that, here's the template that maybe another group could use or another municipality, one of the things that I wonder is, are we always all talking the same language, or do we have the same understanding of the expectations? And so the reason that I asked the question is coming into the municipality and trying to work with staff on what are realistic timelines. And I think the committee at times feeling like, hey, we've been promised something by a certain date. I don't think the intentions were bad, but I wonder if there's a full appreciation or understanding of the work that it takes. And I'm talking mainly on the staffing side or on the council side. You know, do we understand what is meant by maybe gathering our GHG inventory? Like, are we all talking the same language? Do we all understand the effort that it takes, or even what it takes to get to that point? I guess it's just an interesting question. If we're trying to create that, maybe that document that another group could pick up, or even work with ourselves moving forward.
Can I respond to that, Anne?
Sure, go ahead.
So from my perspective, I think that's a really valid point. I think where, and I probably speak more on a personal level, I think where sometimes there was maybe a little bit of confusion on our side is that we do know that it takes time, because we've also done our own research with other municipalities, and we know that it takes time, and we know that this is not straightforward. If it would have been easy, it would have been done a long time ago, right? So this is a challenge, and that's where we
Right.
I think where the confusion or sometimes the where sometimes I think we felt a bit ambiguous is that we would love to work with the staff to actually, especially someone like John, who has done this a few times, who is very plugged into other municipalities, to actually work with staff to also give the staff and I think Bob has been quite involved with also and Anne as well, and Danuta with supporting Trevor in terms of giving them a bit of an overview about what it takes and a bit of a reality check. I think the issue has come in is that when timelines were mentioned, then I think we have said, okay, you said you would do A and B and C. What's the status? And if the status if there was no update on the status, that's, I think, so I don't think it's an appreciation or lack thereof of how much time it takes. It's probably more being an issue about communication and transparency about what are the obstacles for not meeting it. I think we're all recognizing how incredibly busy you are, the workload of the various staff members. It's more to say, let us help you. And if things aren't, there are always, we all have a job and we run into these issues ourselves. So it is really kind of, if you say something, then either do it or explain why you couldn't be why it wasn't able to. And that's, I think, has been a bit of the friction to think like it goes to a black hole. And so, yeah, that would be my personal response, but I don't know what Bob and Danuta and think about that.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the response. And I do think at times there's a lack of understanding or appreciation on the staffing side. You know, we're sort of geared for, we create timelines and we try and figure them out and we try and stick to them. And it's almost like we're trying to achieve an outcome as opposed to, you know, this. I'm a fan of having a Gantt chart and a timeline. But sometimes when people don't understand the effort that something might take, trying to create that timeline, I guess my observation was when I asked the questions when I first started, there was almost this feeling on the staffing side of an urgency to please. And so let's make a promise. And I'm not sure there was an appreciation of what it would take.
Right. And I think actually I really much appreciate that you bring up the discussion. I think a good example is stakeholder engagement, right? It is easy to, I mean, we probably could write a plan on a Saturday afternoon.
Exactly.
But wouldn't mean anything, right?
Right.
So this whole appreciation, and I think it's the overarching objective you have put in the frameworks, to say we've got to talk to people. We need to get buy-in. We need to understand. We need to explain and what it actually means. Because if we commit to some of those targets, having an additional bike trail is not going to meet our 20% reduction by 2030, right? It
Right.
really requires. That's very ambitious, and it means something. And it takes a tremendous process. It's all about process, isn't it? Because the plan is not the end. The plan is the beginning. So that's, I think, and we have been. So I think we appreciate that. It's more, it's been more the process of saying, let us help you, and if you don't want it, that's fine. But at least explain why things didn't come off when you against the timeline you set for yourself, right? Yeah. And I think it's always about under promise and over deliver, and if it's the reverse, then it becomes a bit of an issue, right? So that's the and I think so. Realistic time frame, I think, is absolutely critical, because otherwise it's just about predictability and saying how can we if there's an obstacle, let's talk about it. That's what it is.
No, I really appreciate the feedback and the conversation. I think there's the appreciation and understanding for the effort and the realistic timeline. I also think, and I think I said this early on with this group, I also think this group can be helpful in helping us focus, because we could, to your point, we could go off in 100 different directions, trying to achieve 100 different objectives, and that may not move us forward in the best manner. So just some thoughts.
Okay.
But I appreciate the work that's gone into the work plan.
One of the things that I wonder, and I think speaking to what you're talking about, Cynthia, is when there's a timeline, whether we then need to back up and say, okay, what do we need? What are the steps?
Yeah.
What are the steps you have to go through to get that? So both committee and staff are all understanding what that's going to look like.
Exactly.
And that we all are using the same language, so that we're kind of on the same page in knowing where we're going with it. Yeah. So I would use the example, I think Luke used the example of community engagement, which I think is a big one. I think the other one is doing the emissions inventory gathering. What do we need? What are the steps? And I know John in the last meeting volunteered to help with that. Where are we at with it? What are the steps we need to do? What do we need to gather? When are we done? So what's enough? Yeah. Okay. Any other comments on the kind of consolidated work plan? I think we used MELD before. Yes, Sue.
I guess one of my questions in reading through it, and I think it's an excellent plan, is the fact that there's so many dates in there that we've already passed that we're failing on already. And I just wonder, should we change those around so that at least we don't look like we're failing all the way through on this? And yeah, I think as Anne said, back off from those and see what needs to be done to achieve them. And if we're looking at 6 months to achieve something that we already passed the date, the end of March, I think it could get very frustrating for committee and staff. So that was my only question. Otherwise, I think it's excellent. So thank you very much, Luke.
So I have a wondering about that, Sue, because I agree with you to take a look at the work plan and realize that there's all these dates that we've already missed. Whether it could be an agenda item, standing agenda item, to just take a quick look at that work plan. And if we're getting close to a date or past a date, then that's one that needs to be reviewed and say, where are we at? Do we need to bump it up? Are we close? And adjust the plan accordingly, rather than just let it sit there as, okay, we missed that one. Cynthia.
Yeah, and I think it's great discussion. And, just for the committee's update, we hope to have a few more resources on board in the next month or so that can assist with some stability on some of the work. I mean, I think we're almost talking about a recalibration of this plan. But I go back to Luke's comment, and it would be interesting to hear a little bit more. Luke, you almost said this was a work plan and a strategy, like, or were you referring to the strategy needs to be separate? Because I guess if I look at it from a project management perspective, you usually, maybe these are the high level steps. And then to your point, we need to, if John and I are going to work on the GHG inventory, we need to then itemize more detailed steps related to that. So yeah, just interested in people's thoughts.
Luke?
Yeah, and I particularly refer to the framework that you did with Brittany. So if you go to the Community Climate Action Plan, I mean, there's a lot in the framework in terms of objectives and goals.
Right.
And so in many ways, you already kind of filled out some of the line items in the work plan. But then, of course, and so, for example, you had identified, and in the minutes, I wasn't there in the last meeting, but you identified these 5 focus areas. That is actually part of the work plan to identify them somewhere. So for me, that was kind of almost a bit the starting point of a strategy to say, we have time frames, we have objectives, we have some goals. And then, if you flesh that out, you say, okay, now we have the goals, we have our baseline. How do we get from our baseline to our goals, right? And so the plan would basically be the roadmap to say, how do we get to these 2030 objectives? And how do we get to the 2050 objectives? So we picked out the dates in that plan, but not the details, because the details are part in your in our municipal climate action plan. Yeah. But the dates you will see in here are the dates that you already committed to in the community climate action plan, particularly July 31st. I see here in terms of, and then of course Wood committed to a few, but that's the baseline. So the Wood work, is the baseline, and then it's like, okay, now what? What are our targets, and how do we get there? So that's where it wasn't. That's why you don't see the framework that you developed integrally involved in this, because it is a work plan. That's what it's a tool, right? But then there is a plan to back it up.
Good.
Any other comments, questions? So I have a question. Do we then take a look at this tool kind of on a monthly meeting basis, or how do we use it? Cynthia?
Yeah, I think Luke's suggestion, I was interested in hearing the committee's conversation today. I think, Luke, you suggested this might be some homework or a takeaway to, now get our heads around it, and maybe we have another discussion and tweak it, finalize it at our next meeting. I appreciate the overview and the input today. Now I'd like to go back and take another look at some areas of the plan.
Luke?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I think the issue is, this is not a straitjacket, right? It needs to be our plan. It needs to be useful rather than a hindrance. So let's make it like fitting like a glove, to say that these are the steps we think are important to us. These are the steps that are aligned with the various initiatives we're part of, so that we can actually check those boxes off. Let's do timeframes that we know we can meet, and the additional steps that need to be in there. And then ideally, of course, now with the current situation, we could even add another column to say, where do you as the staff see an opportunity for others to provide support? So are there pieces that can be parceled out, either to a consultant or to one of us or to a staff member, so that you almost can use this towards kind of an action plan. For example, who's going to develop the strategy, right? It's one thing to have goals, but then how do you get to the goals, and if you have these various initiatives? I mean, I think for example, it would be really interesting to have a session about what's providing the most bang for the buck. We have very ambitious goals, and we have very limited resources. So if we're going to put our resources in, if we're going to focus our attention towards achieving our goals, what are the big ticket items? And that will be I think a very interesting example to say maybe there are some people that we can pull in, and all of a sudden we say, okay, this is maybe a way how we can then start working towards a strategy. So I think the first step is to say, are these still the right steps? Are these still the right timelines? And then maybe, and then to work a little bit, to use it really as a tool. That should not be a straitjacket.
I like it.
Danuta?
Oh, yes, sorry, I wasn't muted. my fault. I really am happy to hear this discussion. Two things that came to mind. I believe the township, the Georgian Bluffs Township, has joined both PCP and BARC and committed the money to do that. And I looked into the BARC stuff as part of my involvement in our little committee. And really, what I found was that a membership entitles you to their resources. They don't come and do the plan for you unless you hire them to do that. But it's a real coaching system they've got going, where they, for their members, which we are, I believe, there is a huge amount of resources, and they actually help you with timelines and schedules, and they check on you. I mean, they really help you along to stay on track, from what I read. So I'm curious as to what happened with that, and what it means is that there have to be champions who are liaising with BARC to carry out the adaptation part of the plan. So a next thing to do, I thought, would to find out more about what's happening with that and who these champions should be, either from the staff point of view, and whether or not some members of our committee can be involved with that as well. So that was one question that I had. Yeah. Oh, and the other one, sorry, was we're only meeting monthly, and it would be really nice to take something away from this meeting that we could do, apart from continuing to look at a plan that we're not acting on yet. But that's my wish, but I mean, it may be impractical because there's a lot to be done. Thank you.
My memory when we became or were to become members of BARC, that there were two people that were supposed to be identified as the contacts with BARC. I don't recall who those two people were. Do you know that, Brittany?
They were Al and Trevor previously. So Carly actually just mentioned that we need to relook at who the responsible parties are now that Trevor is no longer with us. So we can do that.
So that's something that you and Cynthia will do. I see Suzanne coming up.
Yeah. I'm just looking at BARC online, and is there a login identity we need to be able to access those resources? Or do we just go in and start using them?
I think, if I may, I think if you can leave that with Brittany and I to follow up on. I wasn't aware that my position was supposed to be one of the contacts, so. But and we may not even need to wait, Brittany, until next month if we can get this information and throw it in the chat for folks.
Good. All right, so Cynthia and Brittany are going to look into that. The team or the committee will be taking a look at the consolidated plan. to take a look at it in our next meeting and tweak it and make it so it actually fits well for the group. Did any other actions that we need to do coming out of that discussion? Covered it? Okay. So I need to find the agenda again. So new business. Cynthia, you were going to be reporting on something from the woods.
Right. Thank you very much. And John, I'll be connecting with you next week once I get a little bit more information. I have an indication from our consultants that they've completed the inventory, the GHG inventory. They have a little bit of data review that they want to do, and they have some clarification that they're potentially looking for, but they're looking to set up a meeting and present. So John, I'll make sure you're connected in with those discussions.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Cynthia. Yeah, I'm available next week, and we'll look forward to that.
Yeah, I think they're looking to set up something the week after, but what I'm going to try and do in the next week is get a little bit more information. If they need clarification on anything, I'll try and do that through email with them, and then we'll set up a meeting. I think it's the following week they're looking for.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll just work with that as best we can. I'll be in Toronto next week with my brother. He's going through cancer treatment, so my schedule is a little bit challenging these days. I'm back and forth in 3 different
Sure.
places, but
Sure.
I'm mostly available online.
Okay. I just want to make sure, John, that you're just connected in. If you can't attend a meeting, totally understand, but I want to make sure we're utilizing you as the resource, right?
Okay, thanks. That's great. Thank you.
I have a question then for you, Cynthia, because I thought that Woods was focusing on the corporate plan and the corporate emissions. Am I right on that, or are they also looking at community?
That was their main focus. I think they have had some discussion though with our county counterparts on some community information as well. But that's part of my clarification, Anne, is what is it that they've got for us?
So it would give you a starting point then when you're looking at community.
Right, exactly.
All right. Any other kind of feedback on the Woods process? Because I think some of their timelines, I think, are some that Sue may have been referencing as having been met already, but not. Nothing else about Woods?
No, I'm
okay. Brittany, green cones.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that our green cones are here. We got them just earlier this week, so we will be starting to sell those. And I know that there's been some interest in bringing the green cones to a few local events, so we now have the inventory should you need to or wish to bring them to any of your local events. Secondly, I wanted to note that our GB Goes Green initiative, we've started our media campaign, and we've created some advertising materials, including little postcards that will be available at the front counter and at our arenas, and again also available to bring to local events with you. That kind of gives a blurb with a QR code that people can scan and be redirected to the survey. So those are now I don't know if they're here. Carly, am I misspeaking if I say the boxes are here? If they're not here right now, they've been ordered and will be here shortly. And that will initiate our media campaign now that we have that QR code and our materials ready. So just a brief update for you guys.
Question for you, Brittany. I know I saw the email come across about the Monday meeting with GBCAT. And yes, you are on the agenda, so please come. But I have a question about the large signs. And we had talked about people looking at the large greenometer signs and reading GB Goes Green, thinking it's Grey Bruce Goes Green and not Georgian Bluffs. And you had talked about getting some Georgian Bluff logo stickers to put kind of on either side. Have those been ordered?
No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
but I
because
can
think
add it
it's-
to my list.
yeah, because we've taken that sign to 1, 2, 3 events, and at each event we're having to explain. No, it's Georgian Bluffs. It's not Grey Bruce. So I think that
Good
that
point.
would be that would be important to get clarified. Yeah.
Okay.
People like the sign, by the way. They just need to know what GB stands for. Yeah. Okay. We're moving. This was a small agenda. No other new business. No notion of notice of motion. We do not need a closed session. So that moves us on to our next meeting date, which is July the 21st. Am I missing anything, Brittany?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I just wanted to note that we have a new attendee on the line with us today, and his name is Ben Suchamel. He is our planning student this summer. He comes to us from, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but you come to us from the University of Waterloo, correct?
Yep, Waterloo.
And Ben has expressed particular interest in the climate action planning portfolio, specifically as it impacts local planning and urban planning and etc. So he has expressed the interest and he will participate in our committee meetings moving forward just from a learning perspective. So everybody, this is Ben.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for the great introduction. Yeah, I'm Ben Zygmunt. I'm currently going into my 3rd year at Waterloo for urban planning, and I'm minoring in geography and environmental management, and planning and definitely climate action is very intertwined. So I'm happy to be here and learning lots from you guys. So thank you.
So welcome, Ben. And I just want to make a piece of information. This evening is the 3rd Thursday of the month, and our local climate action folks are involved in putting together 3rd Thursday climate forums. And the climate forum tonight is focused on the municipal input and what municipalities can do around climate action. And I think the link may have been sent to Brittany for that. Am I right on that, Brittany? Did Jenny send you something? If not, I will send it to you. And if you want to forward it on to Ben, because you're welcome to attend. It's by Zoom.
Perfect.
And
thank you.
yeah, so people that will be presenting are someone involved with climate action from Guelph, the town of Blue Mountain, I think Linda Swanson, the Grey County climate person, as well as the North Bruce Peninsula, who had just approved their climate action plan. So reps from all of those will be coming. So I think it'll be an interesting evening.
Perfect. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else? No. So a motion for adjournment. Danusia, thank you. Motion to adjourn approved. We're done. So see you in July. Happy summer solstice coming up.
Thanks, folks.